This is a CBS News special report. I'm Charlie Rode with Nora O'Donnell in New York. A gunman shot at least 10 people this morning at a military base in Washington, D.C. 3 or 4 of the victims have died.
The first shots were fired just over 2 hours ago at the Washington Navy Yard. There is a report that one shooter is, quote, contained but not in custody, and there could be a second gunman. Chip Reed is at the scene. Chip, what are you learning?
Well, Nora, it is a chaotic situation. Let me point you down the street here so you can see where this is going on. You can see a massive police and emergency medical contingent down there. There are over 100 vehicles of one sort or another there. And that white building that you can see down there behind me is the entrance to the Washington Naval Yard. That is where this happened. And we do know, as you just mentioned, there are fatalities here. The numbers of people shot are anywhere from 5 to 10, perhaps even more. One shooter, perhaps another. There have been reports the shooter barricaded, but other reports say no. So again, a chaotic situation, and we are only about 10, 12 blocks from the U.S. Capitol. That is one reason they were initially concerned about this. There were initial reports that the Capitol was enhancing its security. They now say there is no threat to the Capitol, but anytime something happens this close, with this seriousness, this close to the Capitol, they do take extra precautions. We're also told the president has been briefed several times. Nora and Charlie?
All right, Chip Reed, thank you. We want to bring in CBS's David Martin, who is at the Pentagon. David, this was at the U.S. Naval Yard. Does this involve military personnel as the shooters? What do we know?
Well, let me first give you an update on some of the numbers I've just gotten from a U.S. Navy official who says at least 3 and possibly as many as 6 people have been killed. And that range of numbers is due to the fact that a number of people are critically injured and apparently not expected to survive. The most significant development here in the last few minutes has been the fact that that police are now searching for another gunman. And if you have more than one gunman, that then suggests an attack and not some workplace dispute, but a deliberate attack on that building for some reason we don't know. But it's probably worth remembering that last week, the head of al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, called on followers to launch attacks against Americans inside the United States. I want to say again, I have no information that indicates this is a terrorist attack, but that statement was made last week by the leader of al-Qaeda.
Stay with us, David. We'll go now to Bob Orr in Washington. Bob?
Good morning, Charlie. David talks about the possibility of a second gunman, and this is really the most pressing question right now for authorities. The way they describe this to me is they say one gunman who they clearly identified has been, in their words, quote unquote, neutralized. Now, we don't know whether neutralized means shot and killed or wounded or barricaded but isolated. It's not really clear, but one gunman, suffice it to say, is no longer a threat. What David's referring to is now an exhaustive search through a very big complex that's in lockdown because there are some reports of a possible second gunman, although the federal officials I'm talking to say that's not yet been corroborated. In some ways, it's a very bad situation because you don't know if you're actually looking for someone or if you're chasing a ghost. So this is an open question, and it's why the security situation remains as tight as it is right now. I've been told in terms of numbers, as many as 10, possibly more people hit, as David said, from Navy authorities, from military authorities, at least 3 fatalities. So still a very fluid situation. It is notable to this point that the Metropolitan Police Department is still, in law enforcement parlance, in the lead. And the federal investigators and the FBI, ATF, and others are behind the local police. That's significant in terms of a body language. If, though, as David points out, the possibility this is an attack, if that comes to be fully understood as happening, then you'll see the federal government switch on a dime here and take the lead, Charlie.
Thank you, Bob. Stay with us. We go now to John Miller, sitting at the desk, who's been talking to his sources in Washington.
So, as Bob pointed out, this is very fluid. We've gone from the idea that we had one gunman who was dead to one gunman who might be barricaded to 2 and then possibly 3 gunmen. What we're seeing here is what happens in these incidents, which is a lot of people get there, a lot of transmissions go out over the radio, people call 911, there are sightings here and sightings there. It's hard to get the timeline straight as it unfolds, so this is typical. As best we can tell right now, there was a gunman, there was a security guard among those wounded, we are told, that could suggest that he shot his way onto the base through the gate, opened fire on people outside buildings, inside a building, and was believed to be contained to one building. That search, we are told, is still continuing. So this is very fluid. As for the lead agency, it's tactical, and that means getting the gunman, getting someone in custody, and making sure there's not another. That's why MPD and their SWAT elements are in the lead. But in the end, the investigation, because it happened on a federal base, will revert to an FBI and NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service lead. But that's after they figure out what they've got on the ground.
This is the U.S. Navy Yard. There is already a lot of security to get into this facility. In fact, as I recall, I believe multiple checkpoints to get in. What's key here, I imagine, is this a disgruntled worker, or is this a coordinated attack?
That is the key question. And once they identify the gunman, they'll have a lot of visibility into this. You heard what Dave Martin said, but a lot of the time these things are disgruntled workers, so it's too early to tell.
Thank you, John. Again, authorities say they have contained but not captured a gunman who shot at least 10 people this morning at the Washington Navy Yard. Between 3 and 4 people are dead, and the number may rise. A second gunman could also be involved.
Our coverage will continue throughout the day on the CBS station and tonight on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley. Viewers in the West will return now to CBS This Morning. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Norah O'Donnell with Charlie Rose, CBS News, New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to CBSNews.com.